Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sales Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Daniel McComber, and with me today is Chris Hinckley and Weston Richey. And we are in good old Rockwall, Texas.
Yes, sir.
First time being out here, actually.
Welcome.
Thanks, man. I mean, this is as country as it gets out here, frankly. I mean, within being close to DFW, I feel like.
Yeah, besides this little modern touch that we have here at the XV Studios, you know?
Yeah, I swear, I wish I could turn the camera and show this place. This place is so sick.
We got some B-roll coming in.
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh, do you really film it and everything?
Yeah, we could throw some stuff in there.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Awesome.
This corner looks good, but we got a lot going on over there still right now.
Yeah, we'll just slowly pan as it continually gets better and better. Well, honestly, I picked up on you guys just through Instagram and just saw the movement that you guys had and with your, creative agency, we want to call it, production studio. And I was like, I don't know what these guys are doing right, but they're doing something right because the momentum you guys have and just obviously the relationship you two have it's very attractive to a guy like me. And so just reached out to you. So I'm glad that we can make it work.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we got connected. I think originally it was you had a friend at Jetson Capital that we were at in Utah. And that's how you oh, these guys are there. They know this person. Let's talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of cool how things work out, especially that first call we got on. There's a lot of alignment just kind of with what you're trying to do and what we're trying to do. Yeah. So it's cool how, the universe works. Nothing by chance, No,
honestly. And by the way, when you guys were up there, were you filming for it, or what? Were you doing production for it, or?
Not necessarily for the event. We were going to be going with the client, and then he had some issues with his plane, so he didn't end up making it out there. Oh. But Ryan Boswell, one of the guys that puts it on, is a good friend of ours, and so we were kind of going to go regardless. It was just, we could get some content for our client, and then it just ended up us being there. So
we filmed the one in Dallas. So
yeah,
it's a small hall, power of connections. Friend of ours met Ryan, connected us. We went to literally a day before the Jetson Capital, went to lunch, and ended up being 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, I love it.
I was like, if you know Ryan Boswell, you just know. And so great human, and great humans kind of attract great humans. So that's kind of why I think we're here.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we can't go anywhere without a camera. So we pretty much, we film everything, even if there's no money behind it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, it's so funny. Even just last night, I went to this Halloween thing with my family. And I guess I've just become so accustomed to recording everything I'm doing now. Yep. So I'm recording this. And then by the end of it all, the moms were like, can you send me everything that you just did? Because I have these great pictures of my daughter and the kids and stuff. Anyway, so you just kind of get used to it, right?
Oh, that's me and my family. I was just over with my brother, sister-in-law, their kid, my mom, and I took a bunch of pictures and video, and they're all send it to me. I'm the content creator for our family because no one will break out their phone and shoot anything.
That's true. If you're there, we're good. The rest of them are good. They don't need to worry about it.
If we're not there, the memory's not getting captured.
What's weird though is my family's why are you taking content?
They're still like that?
They're still like that, man.
Really?
That's
wild.
Yeah,
I used to love the drone. I'm we travel, go skiing. I'm I really want to pull over and drone this. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Once they see the end result, they're like, oh, you should have done more. And I'm like, I know, but there was pressure added.
It's funny because you've always done a really good job of documenting your life, even back when you were a kid. I didn't even pick up my iPhone and shoot a photo or video until I got into production and photos and video and all that stuff. And so pretty much the first, 20 something years of my life is just there's very minimal photos and videos of it, which kind of sucks, but
well, have you seen the documentary on Heath Ledger by chance?
No. I haven't seen the doc, but I know a lot about him.
Actually seeing him, so that documentary, he was one of the first guys to just film everything he was doing. So it was such an amazing documentary after he died because they had so much freaking footage of him. He just would record himself. He'd record what he was doing all the time. And so you really got to get an insight into who he was because he was always recording. I saw that back in 2019 or 2020 during COVID or something like that. And that's when I started thinking man, I'm not a content creator at the time. I was but I was it'd be stupid for me not to just, record this. I mean, who knows who might want to be interested in this later. So,
well, that and we forget, we go through busy months and people are like, where have you guys been? What have you been doing? I'm I don't even know. We've just been doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's good to go back.
There's a fine line though of being present. And then there's also a time where you film everything. Right. And I think that comes back to fear of judgment is from where we're from in Rockwall, it would have been really weird to run around with a selfie stick But you go to LA and it's just everybody's doing
Everyone's doing it. Yeah.
it. Right? Like in DFW, cool. If we take selfies, we record things, like it's kind of accepted. But like I feel like here, people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're very much so judged for it. Because, like, I mean, you see people shooting content. It looks kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, like, when you see the end product, it's like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah,
Influences in the wild.
There comes the Aussie accent.
Yeah. No, that's it's so, I love that. Y'all follow that account?
No.
Influencers in the wild. And it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's people like
Oh, I've
filming
seen
influencers like do the most
Like on the
ridiculous
ocean,
ratchet
getting
things, like
swept away by a wave. or
crawling
something
through the
like that.
water. Like you're like, what are you doing?
I think it all goes back to like the purpose of it too, right? It's like, okay, why are you filming? What's the purpose of it? Are you creating something that's going to help other people, or are you being super self-centered? And I think that's the LA kind of aspect, right? I mean, I grew up in San Diego, but I moved when I was 10, so I don't know exactly the scene there. But I imagine when you're creating content for just super selfish purposes, that's when it definitely come across as like inauthentic, out of place, for example. Yeah. But I think especially with you two, I know for a fact you guys are creating content, you're creating things to help people.
Yes.
Like you could just tell by what you're making. It's like, and also when you guys come from a place of, I like to say, authority, like you guys do, when you are saying things to the camera, it's not to try to convince yourself of these things. It's truly to help the person that's on the other side of the phone.
Absolutely. But I think we learn that. I think at first, you build your personal brand, and like ego is a huge word in how we do things. Like, do we have an ego? Do you not have an ego? Mm-hmm. But I think when you grow a brand, you have to have some kind of ego to get people to attract what you're doing. Because if you sit there and give me great information, that's great. But if you don't have backbone in your business of why you're doing it in the first place, I'm probably not going to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, how do you attract when you don't actually have the credibility that a lot of these people do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Like, Chris is becoming a fitness model and he doesn't even know it, right?
Yeah.
How does he be humble and also grow and share that in the correct way by also showing his body? For example, like, it's very difficult.
It's a fine line. I think it just depends on your messaging, right? Because like, if I had it my way, I wouldn't even have an Instagram.
Right.
It exhausts me. Like, I can't keep up with it as well as I probably should.
Me and
but
you both.
when I started sharing more of my life, not so much, but like a little bit here and there, I've realized the impact it can have on people. Like, for instance, I'm going for a marathon right now. And I started training like 2.5-3 months ago. So I started posting about it, putting on my stories, a few posts on it and stuff like that. And there's people that DM me that I've never heard from before. And they're like, I ran my first mile today because of you. Really? I went to the gym today because of you. I got my whole family running 7 miles like once a week now. And like, my girlfriend started running. Never thought that would happen. She doesn't even like running. And so it's just like inspired a lot of people to like take action in their lives, whether it's, fitness, business, or anything like that. And I think that's why I've come to peace with it, and why I think it can be used as like a good tool. Like, it's so obvious, but like, social media can be used like for your personal benefit or to impact others. And I think that's the long lasting version of it, is like, you create content for people to learn and be inspired by, not necessarily to make yourself like look better and put yourself up on a pedestal with following and likes.
Yeah. I mean, to hit on that a little bit harder, when you get DMs like that, what does that do for you?
It gets me up in the morning.
Right.
It running 20 miles, 26 miles, it's boring.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It's really hard. You're just out there running for hours on end by yourself.
You can only listen to so many freaking podcasts and music.
Oh, music, I'm burnt out.
Training for the marathon is the worst because you just get so bored of like listening to things and just doing nothing. So
I think that's the lesson though. To be great, you have to continue to do the things when you're bored. Mm-hmm. You can be good all you want, but to really be great is the discipline and the consistency of, I really don't want to do this. This is just not fun. And Chris gets up every morning and gets it done. Yeah. And like, I always wonder why you do that. I mean, I think you probably can tell Dan, but tell kind of everybody else why you actually get up in the morning.
Why do I get up in the morning? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. For one, because I can, and God allows me to wake up and walk on my 2 feet down the stairs every single day, and I don't have to take daily medication, and I'm a healthy human, and I'm not held back by a lot of things. And so, I have the ability to do what I want to do. So I get up and try and crush every single day and knock out as many things as I can because of that, because I have the opportunity to. But why am I like running right now? I mean, it kind of was just a random thought, to be honest. Like, my mom, she's turning 70 next year. She wanted to go for a half marathon. So I was like,
sweet.
Okay, I'll start training now. And then I got to 7 miles, 10 miles, 13.1. I was like, maybe I should be training for a marathon. And I've always wanted to do it, but never really put the time in to like train for it.
Yeah.
So that was like the initial phase. But then I realized like when you get out there for miles and hours on ends, like you're breaking through barriers in your mind. It's not just the physical aspect of it. When your calves are on fire, your hips hurt, you're depleted, and you know you probably haven't taken care of yourself in the correct way.
Right.
Like it's a mental battle.
Yeah.
You're not going to die, but it's going to hurt. But you will get through it. And so like, you know,
and the
for
lessons
me,
you learn by getting through
it overflows into everything outside of running. Like, you know, when it comes to a difficult client or a difficult pitch or a job that's, you know, way more than what it used to, what you anticipated it to be, is like, that's just a challenge you can always overcome. And like running has really taught me that. It's like Weston talks about doing the boring stuff, and you know, you do enough of the boring stuff, you're going to have a lot of growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Hormozy thing.
Yeah.
Do the boring stuff.
Do the boring stuff. Yeah.
Do the hard
boring
shit.
stuff.
Do the hard
What
shit
about
too.
you? Why do you wake up in the morning?
Man, it's changed over the past few years. And that's the thing I think people need to realize too, is that, you know, the motivation that gets you up today is not necessarily going to be the motivation that gets you up tomorrow or the next day or the next year. So for me, you know, last year I ran a marathon. This year I did half Ironman. And the thing that gets me going through those is like, you know, my kids literally is like, hey, it sounds kind of crazy, but you know, I did some pretty crazy stuff leading up to before my kids. But it was always just kind of like, oh, how can I get a thrill out of this, right? Like backcountry snowboarding, I'm pretty passionate about that. And so hiking and going down crazy mountains, it's like, yeah, that was like all thrill seeking. What can I get out of this? It wasn't ever really, there's zero external reasons why I was doing that pretty much. It was all internal. And so as I started having kids, I started realizing that a lot of the reasons for me doing hard stuff was so that way, one, it'll be an example for my kids when they're older. And two, I'm like, I also want to make sure my body and mind and that I'm staying in like good shape and good peak physical form through the time that my kids are young until they're adults. Because I realized, I looked at my son, he's 1.5. I was like, I've got 20 years where this kid is going to be, hopefully 20 years while this kid is, before he turns 21, that he's going to want to like hang out with dad, right? Hopefully longer. Hopefully
It'll be
longer, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like hang out, like do sports and stuff like that. So I'm like, I've got to make sure that I can go hard, but I can be a good example and push myself. But I also got to make sure I'm doing it in the right way. So that way I can have longevity and I can play sports with my son until I'm 20 or till he's 21. And so that's when I started getting into, like, I hired a coach to help me with mobility. And because when I ran that marathon, here's the thing, guys, like, and this is a lesson I like to teach a lot of people who like think that it only takes hard effort and hard work and grind. No, like you do have to take the moments and step back, reflect, figure out what's wrong, and tackle those things as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the boring stuff, you got to make sure you're hitting it. But at the same time, I feel like there's lots of levels to the boring stuff. There's the boring stuff running on the road. I'll tell you what's more boring for me than running on the road is doing 40 minutes of mobility work. That stuff sucks, right?
It hurts,
and
too.
That's the only reason why your hips hurt so bad is because you don't do it enough.
Well, I do quite a bit of it, honestly.
Oh, you do?
So I'm actually a certified yoga teacher.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man. So you
I do a lot of stretching. It's just
Last of Thor.
yeah. So
and
you get enjoyment out of it. So you're.
I do.
Different.
Well, I just know what it does for me and how much better I feel. Like stretching, mobility does a lot for your mental too. Like when you hold a lot of like tightness in your hips, like my teacher always told me, everyone that has tight hips has emotional damage. And like in a way that's like pretty true. Like
I guess
my shit's tight. I'm tight as shit then.
Yeah, we got some shit to work on.
I got a bunch of that, brother. I can't go down the stairs then.
Because my hips are always tight. Emotional damage. Dang, dude, I gotta check myself.
We gotta do some inner work there. Stretch a little bit more.
I think so.
Inner healing. Yeah, that's a good way to look at that.
But no, yeah, you're right. It's like there's the boring aspect, there's the hard work aspect, and then there's like stepping back and looking at, okay, am I struggling over here because I'm not fueled properly or I'm not taking care of my body properly? Which is like, I just hired a nutrition coach because I was out there doing, 17, 20 miles and I felt terrible. I felt like my body was shutting down.
Yeah.
And so, after a week getting into it, it's like, I feel a lot better. It's like, okay, I got to address certain things that I didn't think about before, because it's not a matter of just like getting out there and doing it. You got to be prepared to do it.
Yeah. So you can go faster and longer if you're prepared for it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'm curious, kind of tying this physical aspect into what you guys have accomplished here. I mean, the boring stuff, when you're starting something like what you guys have started, it's not boring, right? It's super exciting. You're starting something. It's phenomenal. Every project that you take on, it's really exciting and getting going. Have you guys reached that point where you've hit any of the boring stuff, or I shouldn't say boring, but like tedious, mundane things that
we've been there for a while. You know, we get excited with certain projects. We know that we can accomplish them. You know, our dream is much bigger than me. It's a we thing between not just me and Chris. It's like, hey, we want to build a community. We want to build a culture where people actually show up and want to be a part of what we're doing. If we can go and work hard and stay in the trenches and, you know, make this dream possible, we can help other people chase their dreams.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what wakes me up in the morning when it comes to a question like that, is like, do we like doing the boring stuff? No, but we also know the result. Right? It's not how hard we can work. It's who works the longest. Who's the most consistent. It's not about quitting. It's just who's still standing. And so I think me and Chris have really adapted to just doing things. And in our whole life, especially 2024, I have not been very disciplined, but 2024 has been the year where I feel like we've both changed our mental, physical based on discipline.
Yeah.
Instead of motivation. Motivation dies.
Yeah, it's not always there.
Can you think of an example from like this past year where you maybe did something that at first seemed mundane or tedious or boring, and then actually turned it out, like by the time you got done with it?
So I ran 1 mile every morning.
Yeah.
First I'm like, okay, I can run a mile any day of the week, but consistently making sure that I get up and do that the first thing is a non-negotiable. Like day 15, I'm like, oh, this is so boring. And then day 30, I'm like, why am I not running yet? Because I've already created the routine in my head that I have to do this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if I didn't do it, my dopamine crashed. And so it was just part of my life now at this point, which Chris can vouch to this as well, is like, we don't miss. We don't miss the gym. We don't miss our runs. We don't miss our walks. It's non-negotiable. Things can wait. Our mental health is so much more important. And so I think after seeing the consistency is where we just have pushed past our limit of what people have put us in our own box.
Okay. Going back to because this brand is, how long have you guys been doing this?
8 years.
8 years. So 8 years was quite a long time ago. I guess in the beginning, maybe this will just kind of help anyone who's looking to start something somewhat similar to what you guys are doing. What were some of the boring or mundane things that you were doing at the beginning that ended up being just absolutely essential, and what helped you guys kind of eventually build what you have now?
So we have 2 chapters here. I don't know if you want me to go first and then you want to jump into yours. So when I started, and like any advice I'd give back is just start. 1. 2, I think a lot of people think that you put effort in, you have to get rewarded. And I think that's the confusion, is like, if you want to be great and you want to do something, there's got to be a risk to get reward. And I don't know how many hours I put into my life and my craft and did all these things because I wanted to, not for something earned for it. And I think a lot of people get confused, like, oh, I've done 100 hours and this still hasn't profited yet. It's not supposed to.
Yeah.
It'll profit when it's ready to. And you have to consistently grind in order for that thing to actually turn. In entrepreneurship, there's no proven way to actually make it work. It's just make it happen. So like, if I could go back, I would definitely done things different. I would have found somebody that I could actually look up to and find business information and logic. Like Chris has really added a lot of things to my life based on his brain type, but asking the right questions to get the right answers. You know, you can go knock down as many doors as you can, or you can go find 10 doors or something that's in the same realm that might be a faster process. And I think that's what I would go back and do now, is just reach out to people and be willing to work, willing to learn without having to get paid, without doing this, because I know the outcome now that if you just keep working, staying consistent, it's going to come back to you.
Well, to add to that too, what people sometimes don't realize is like reaching out to people is not like, if you reach out to 10 people and all 10 of them just don't respond or don't react, cool, keep reaching out. I think that's a huge problem that guys have right now, is like, oh, I want help. It's like, cool, how many people have you reached out to try to get help? A couple. Or I'll send a DM every once in a while to my favorite influencer that's got 500,000 followers or whatever like that. It's, people really don't understand it takes a lot of work to build your network, and at least a meaningful one. And the reel I posted today was like, if you are able to if you're able to find a meaningful connection with somebody, you have to put in the work in order to keep that meaningful connection. And so it's like, hey, we all met, we've had a phone call, we were going to do this podcast. If none of us put in any work into maintaining this, then the meaningful connection turns into, hey, we did a podcast a while ago.
Right.
And so I think, to your point, sometimes it takes a lot of work to consistently reach out to people. And sometimes you'll even reach out to someone and you'll try to make it work. Maybe you can help them a little bit, they'll help you a little bit, but then you realize, man, our ideas are actually not on the same trajectory at all. This is not working at all. And so, I mean, for me, for example, I went through like 3 different kinds of coaches before I found the one that ultimately helped me just kind of explode in the past year. And so, I mean, do you guys have anything kind of similar to that, where you either reached out to people or you made a business connection that you just ultimately had to keep doing it until you found the one that worked?
Yeah, I do want to get into that, but I also want to spin off something you said.
Yeah.
I think when you reach out to somebody, I think it's certain verbiage you have to use.
Okay, like what?
If the person you reach out to doesn't see themselves in you, they're not going to help you. And I think a lot of people ask for help, but it's like a handout. It's not help. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, help me, give me this, give me that. It's not, hey, can I come study and can I come observe what you do? I'd really like to learn. Mm-hmm. Versus, hey, can I come work for you? And then it's always a financial situation where I feel like if someone reaches out to me and I give them a task to do, hey, go check out this podcast that I want you to listen to first. If they can't do that one simple phase and come back with an actionable item that they're actually listening to my advice, or hey, here's one I hate. Hey, I'd love to steal some of your time. Well, I don't want you to steal my time. Yeah. What I would like is you to appreciate my time and come value yours, and let's figure out something together. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I wish. If you're getting into entrepreneurship, do not ask for a handout. We have this term called the boat, where the boat's moving and there's a hole in it. If we stop, the boat sinks. I'm not going to stop the boat for you to get into the boat as a handout. If you want to swim your ass all the way to the boat and you want to work and you want to put max effort in to get to this place, once you get to the boat, we will pull you in while it's moving.
Yeah. I love that. Do you have an example of like you reaching out? Do you have an early mentor that helped you with that?
Well, we have a mentor now, a leadership coach. His name's Al Herrera. He's an amazing human being. He's really changed our life perspective, helped us with our identity and a lot of things. But as I was younger, I had one person that just believed in me. I think when you figure out motives of people, some people need different things. I was already extremely driven. I just didn't have anybody to believe in me. Oh. And once I had one person really be like, dude, you have something good here, like focus on it. Yeah. That was all I needed to drive. Right. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of helping me and mentored me, and one of my best friends, Ewan Holden, and like shaped me and helped me with my character, how I communicate, how I dress, how I operate business, how I did financials, and really presented me as a businessman versus a creative. Wow. And then Chris has been a huge mentor in my life, even though he's younger than me, because the way he's been, just elevating his life in different spaces. Chris is an engineer brain type, which he's structured, he's organized, he's quiet, but he's the observer, he's the sniper. Mm-hmm. So like I'm on the ground, put me in the boots and like I'll sprint. And if Chris needs to come down, he would, but Chris is the sniper. And this is the best way to explain Chris is he's Chris Kyle, right? Yeah. Where I'll be on the ground and just scrapping if I need to be, and building the team and moving around. And Chris has my back the whole time. He's watching me. He's in my earpiece going, hey dude, go left, go right. I got you. Boom. Somebody over there. Boom. I got them. Like that's how Chris works. He's very observant and he's loyal as it gets. So like, that's one of the powerful things about having friends and mentors and spaces is like, I get to learn from him just as much as he learns from me.
What do you think about that, Chris, hearing?
Yeah, I think that's an important, like that's one of the most important things about our personal relationship as well as like our business partnership is that we're not both the same people, right? Like he was talking about like, I'm very much detail oriented, back end, like that's where I thrive. I love systems. I love, challenges, growing the business, stuff like that. And Weston is very much like he kills it with relationships, communication. Like that's what I learned from him. Like, and also he's an incredible creative, by the way. Like he's got ideas left and right. Yeah. Sometimes it exhausts me, but it's the best thing. Like it keeps us going, right? Because he'll throw 100 darts at the board. I'll pick a few off and be like, these are the ones we need to run at.
So it's funny, and you guys probably already know this, but hearing you guys talk about each other really interests me. So Ed Milet always says, let me tell you about you. Have you heard him say that?
Yeah.
And so Chris just gave you just gave Chris a whole bunch of compliments, and then Chris, you just gave Wes like a whole bunch of compliments, and you're telling each other. So I can imagine how strong a relationship can be when you constantly you're giving into that other person their strengths and reaffirming it. Almost sounds like you guys probably do this on like a daily basis.
Well, I'll say the reason we do that, one, we care about each other. Two, we've been through the thick and thin with each other. And three, we've worked with so many companies. And it's so easy to pinpoint out because we're both innovators. Idea, concept, expand it. And the thing we've learned with the community of companies is no one's heard, no one's seen, no one's appreciated, no one feels like they're valued. And I feel like we've both done that for each other, which is why we sprint at everything we do. We're not worried about an hourly rate. We're worried about getting the job done because I know he has my back. I know he's pushing just as hard as me. And when you go through all these major companies and you can just pinpoint out this person's unhappy, this person's unhappy, the boss has an ego that can't fit through the building. Nobody wants to work for them. People want to work for a leader. And when you attract, it's hard to go find the right people. But if you are a leader and you lead by example, you'll find those people to attract to you. And you don't have to go find people anymore. And so that's what we want to do now, is just be the example where people want to show up versus having to go out and find all these people that don't have the right mindset.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Because I mean, ultimately, as a creative organization, the two of you, right, on a work side of things, you will, people will reach out to you and you go kind of fulfill an order. You go and you do media for them or whatever like that. But then when you're not doing that, you're creating this community. You're creating this. What do you like to define what you're creating right now, just between the two of you?
There's a lot going on. I'd say our main focuses right now are production, right? Because that's the cash flow. Studios, which is the future, as well as the community, are kind of like our big pushes. And then we also have a clothing brand, like this hat we're wearing right now.
Yeah.
That's like something we love to do. We're not like trying to make a ton of profit from it. It's just like we've always wanted to design our own clothes. And so that's what we did. Nice. And also like it plays into the whole branding and merch and stuff like that, which is awesome. But I'd say the biggest thing that we're focused on is like impact and legacy. And it's not the product that we've put out, whether it be video, photo, whatever it is. It's impact on people. And like Weston was saying earlier, we want to foster an environment where people can come together to grow together, because everyone's missing that like support group. And we live by a quote: if your circle doesn't inspire you, it's not a circle, it's a cage. And a lot of people don't have that circle that inspires them. And so that's what we want to create here.
Yeah.
So
I'm 100% on par with that. People are struggling the lack of belief. There's so much Instagram. There's so much it's comparison. It's this, that, and the other. If they can't believe in themselves, they want to attach to somewhere else where they can believe in. So that's why we're doing the community, is giving a safe place for people to be heard and seen. They want to believe that this is going to work because it's inspiring, because they haven't seen it in a long time. So, as we grow these businesses, it goes back to limit or limitless. It's like, what are we going to be doing in 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years? We don't know, but we know what we're going to do is whatever we focus on, we're going to be obsessed with it and we're going to enjoy it. And I think if we do that, and when you stick to that, is like, I'm going to do the things I love to do, I think you end up making money on them. And money's not really a thing we're trying to climb. It's my big thing to climb is when I saw Chris really smile when he was 26 for the first time, was what I'm chasing. When I saw him develop his dream and go through the thick and thin, and saw him go through his own trench, and he's heard me say this 100 times, but being a little sentence in his paragraph, to be there with him during that was the coolest feeling in the world. So like my mission is, when I saw his dream, changed mine. And so like legacy, we all die over a certain amount of years, but if we can help people pull out their gifts, legacy never really dies, because we're able to expose them and appreciate them for who they are and let them be great in their areas. And
is
then
that what you feel you've learned how to do pretty successfully, is help pull out people's gifts?
So, I mean, Chris might be able to answer that a little bit better than me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have something to talk about and you need to get your thoughts out and think clearly, like Weston's the person to go to, right? Because he's incredible with questions. I mean, he'll ask you the right things in the right way to pull things out of you that you might have never even thought about yourselves. And I think you've built a lot of that talent through like a lot of the interviews we've come through, as well as like the communication with clients and stuff, and just, you know, studying people's brain types, and what works for certain people doesn't always work for others. And then when we got to like the war room stuff, which I'll let you talk about, that encapsulates everything that you've subconsciously been training yourself for the last 8 years. Right. And so now you can easily identify these things in people that they don't really see in themselves, because you actually listen to them and you understand them after just a few conversations. Your question asking is just on point.
Yeah, it's a sponge effect. Like, how do you pull things out of people? It's not the answer that ever has a changed moment. It's the question. I could question you so much where you figure your own answer out, which means you're actually going to go accomplish something. I could tell you to do this, 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 and this. Doesn't mean you're going to do it.
Being asked the right questions is what motivates and gives people their own answers.
Right. So we ask people this all the time. Is like, respectfully, are you happy?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So you answered very quick. I want you to go ask the millionaires, the billionaires, and the famous people you work with the same question.
Yeah.
You're going to get a very different answer. But you also have an alignment personally, and you have an alignment in business. Which make you fulfilled in life, which makes you want to get up and do things for your wife, do things for your kids, because you have purpose. If you go through life and don't have purpose or fulfillment, who did you live for? You lived for every single person but you.
Well, if you were to ask me that question last year, I would probably take a little bit to answer, say yes, but not really mean it.
Why?
It's because I hadn't done all the work that I did this year.
So you're
I was very one-sided. Like,
are you very confident in your identity when you look in the mirror?
I am now, yeah.
Why?
Because of the work that I had to put in.
How did you identify the work?
Through a coach. Yeah. Through guidance, through people.
So that was an investment. That was time. That was effort. That was will or won't. Are you willing to work on yourself, or are you not?
Yeah.
Like Chris and I, and Al Herrera, our leadership coach, amazing human, has taught us will or won't. And so like me and Chris have a great relationship, because when something bothers Chris or something bothers me, hey Chris, will you be willing to work on something for me? Automatically sets the space of like, hey man, we're together. I'm not coming at you. You don't have to get defensive, but are you willing to work on something for me because you care about me? And he's like, yes. And then we can have a difficult conversation. And so we do that in our friendship. We do that in our relationship. We do that in business. And will or won't has honestly changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, so back to you for a second. Like when you think about your happiness and you think about how to unlock your potential, what would you give back to someone to help them unlock their potential?
Well, when you're on this side of the hurdles, you want to do is just help people get to the side that you're on. And so all you want to do is just go through the painstaking process of learning Instagram and learning content creation, and go through that, so that way you can put yourself in a place where you can help more people. Because I can only help a couple people a year through the way that I was doing it before, recruiting and bringing them on through my sales organization. And it was great. It was very one-sided, and then I would help them expand into their personal lives, like work and then personal lives. But now I'm willing to go through the grind of learning all this stuff, so that way I can help more people. Because like you said, once you have someone help you in a way that is effective and meaningful, you just want to replicate that.
Right. Well, we've all been on both sides of the fence. Chris was locked in a prison in his old job. Not actually, but it's what he felt. It's what he felt.
Yeah.
Cubicle life, you know,
like that was just not for Chris. He felt like he was in jail.
Like a prison.
It was.
So, you know, you have that job, and then you also have the freedom, right? Money equals freedom in certain spaces sometimes. But, you know, I would recommend anybody and everybody to study brain types, because I get to have 1-on-1 conversations with people by understanding their triggers. Chris has different triggers than I do. And so when I actually listen and hear him, because, you know, not everybody's asked him those questions and like wants to know his triggers. Right? Like that's a very sensitive topic. You don't want to necessarily jump into those things. But now that I know his triggers, I know how to reword things where he doesn't get defensive, because it's painful. It's hurtful. Right? Nobody wants to be ashamed or feel guilty. So what I like to do is study everybody's brain type, get enough information where I can kind of identify a good question to where they can feel safe with me. And then I'll be vulnerable and be like, hey, I went through a very struggle time in my life, and now I'm vulnerable, which gives them an opportunity to come to the table and say, hey, thank you for sharing. I also want to be vulnerable. That's how I think you help and change people, is giving them a space to be vulnerable. Because nobody wants to listen to them. Nobody cares. So
yeah, I like how you said that, you shared with them, you were vulnerable with them, you shared with them the work that you had done and what you had accomplished. And I think that's the biggest thing as well. If you feel like you have a skill or you feel like you're pretty good at something and you want to help others, make sure you dive into learning your own brain type and how your brain works, like a really good point, because otherwise you can't help other people. So that was kind of like the last step for me actually this past year was through a different course. In my last podcast, we talked about this, ironically enough. We went on a spin-off of ADHD for like 20 minutes. It was hilarious.
It's a gift.
But yeah, it was crazy. I was an adult diagnosed with ADHD or whatever. Like I didn't know I had anything like that. And I hesitate to even call it ADHD because it's just the way my brain works. And it's very different from anyone else who has ADHD.
So there's a book called Driven.
Uh-huh.
I'm ADHD to the max. Yes or no? 100%. Go research major corporations, companies, owners, CEOs, CFOs. They're ADHD.
Yeah.
Because they're so hyper obsessed with something, they become so good at it. Yeah. So people think it's a downfall and it's this, that. I can't focus. Well, just throwing this out there. If I'm at school and I don't want to focus on chemistry because I'm not passionate about chemistry, why not give me something that I'm going to dominate in and let me be really passionate about? I will become an expert and great at this.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like going to school teaches you, yes, a lot of things, but I think it also pulls you away from becoming great at a younger age.
Yeah.
If you were able to hyper focus on things that you actually are passionate about.
Well, that's the way I am with college. It's like, hey, listen, I have no problem with people like going to college for like a first semester or first year as an idea of what they want to do, because that's a discovery phase, right? You're 18, 19 years old. You're trying to figure out what you want to do. What I do have a problem with is when people go to college and they are learning what they don't like while also kind of learning what they do like. And then they start feeling, okay, I'm actually gravitating towards maybe this, like being a creative. Okay, cool. But the school that I have doesn't have that, or I can do that, but I think I would actually learn more if I paid so-and-so who's actually willing, who sees potential in me and is willing to, teach me personally.
Right.
So what I have a problem with is people feeling like they have to stay in school and suffer, when it's like, hey man, school can be a good place to start learning what you're good at. There's also 1,000 other ways you could do that. But once you have, it's kind of like fishing. Like once you feel like a little bit of a pull, then you got to gravitate towards that. Right. And you got to put the money where you're going to be more successful, in my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. And the real reason Chris and I are doing what we're doing is because I didn't go to school. Chris did. And he was really good at school.
Yeah. He
did the hard shit. He did the boring shit. And there's times where he can lock in and hyper focus, and I'm super appreciative of that. But now school was pointless for him besides the work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, it taught me how to problem solve.
And then,
when people ask me like, "What'd you get from college?" It's like I learned how to solve problems. At a grand scale.
I think genuinely, you would have been doing that regardless if you went to school, just based upon the challenge of how your brain works. You want to be great at whatever you do. You've always been that way.
Yeah.
And so we've came up with a concept here. Studio is the war room where we basically want to build a curriculum on how to design your dream life before you even go to school.
Yeah.
Like people don't ask the right questions. Parents don't go, hey, what do you actually enjoy doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are you passionate about? Have you thought about this option? Like give me a proposal on what you want your life to maybe look like. And then let's find a way to actually idea, action, execution. And so what we want to do is build this basically a college to turn your dreams.
Exclusive university is what I was going to call it.
Pretty much.
A curriculum on how to turn your dream to reality. Yeah. Whatever age you're at, whether you're just getting out of high school, whether you're in high school, or what, I'm 40 years old and I'm fucking miserable. Well, here's a chance to actually learn and identify what you want to do with your life. And since we've been on both sides, is I can pull it out. And Chris is like, hey, here's your blueprint every day on how you need to actually make this thing go linear, because that's Chris's gift. That's his gift.
Yeah.
So it's this great dynamic of like, look, you don't have to live the life you're living. Mm-hmm. Why not live the dream life you've always been wishing for?
But it starts with dreaming. And that's something that I lacked, like me. Okay, so my dad, he was unemployed for last 15 years of his life. My mom was a teacher. So like the American dream for me is like, you go to college, maybe play sports, you get out, you get a good job, family, house, kids, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I didn't even think about entrepreneurship, owning a business or anything like that, because I wasn't around it for one. Mm-hmm. And I just forgot to dream. Like I thought that,
oh yeah,
me just being a contributing member of society, having finances in the bank and growing a family was like life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it because I didn't look inside and figure out, what do I love to do? What versus what am I good at? And those are two very different things. And a lot of it comes from outside input. I was a big body growing up. I was like 20 pounds heaver at 18 years old in high school.
From Space Jam.
And so sports
yeah, dude, you're big, bro.
Sports is the first thing that comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
So people always told me like, you're going to be an incredible football player. Like you're going to crush it. You're going to get a scholarship and go play D1. And so like, that was my identity, was Chris, the football player.
And you were good at it.
And I was good at it. Right. But I wouldn't say that I just loved it. Like I love Friday nights. I love playing in the games. When it came to practice, film, I hated it, honestly. Like I was going through the motions to get it done. And I didn't realize that I actually had a brain on me until I got to college and stopped playing sports. I got by in school and I made good grades, but like I was really tested when I went after engineering in college, and I was like, wait, I'm a little bit smarter than I thought I was. I just didn't put enough effort behind it because my focus was on something that I didn't love to do. And engineering wasn't that thing either. Yeah. But it taught me that like there's other things that I can be good at, which eventually led to like what we do now. Gotcha. And it's like when I picked up a camera for the first time, I hated it. It was frustrating, but it was a challenge. And so that was something that I hyper focused on. And then I'll never forget, I shot my friends' engagement photos just as a gift to them because I had played around with the camera for a while. And that was the first time where, I staged the shoot, I got the composure, I did the editing, and I delivered and saw the reaction. From that moment on, I was hooked. I was hooked on the creative process and the feeling that you could pull out of people by something that you create inside of your brain.
So what I like about that is that you kind of have three different chapters there, of course, where you did something to the point where you were good at it.
Yes.
And then you decided whether or not it like kind of made you happy or not.
Right.
Because I think that's a huge problem, is that people will pick up a new task. They'll pick up a new project. And yeah, a lot of times it's really hard at the beginning. And they'll quit before they get good at it. Because here's the thing, once you get good at it, then okay, now my services to other people, am I enjoying this, right? Am I enjoying the reaction? Am I enjoying where this can take us? Sales is absolutely the biggest proponent of this, where guys will join sales door to door, for example, in my realm, and they'll put in work and they hate it. Yeah, it's freaking hard work. It sucks. But you get to the point where you get so good at it that one, it's not as hard anyways anymore. Two, even the hard work is rewarding because of the fact that you now like it. And then same thing with any other kind of sales. And so I like how you put in the hard work with the camera, learning it, because you knew, hey, if I'm going to give this thing a real crack, if I'm going to find out if this is something I really enjoy, I got to get good at it first.
Yeah, no, you got to be great at it.
Yeah.
And then the next step of that is like, once you become great at it, how do you teach someone else as well? That's a whole different battle.
Yeah.
And I'd say like my big aha moment was when I was in my engineering job after college, and I'm a numbers guy, right? So it's got to make sense in the data. So I'm sitting there, it's got to make sense number wise.
Trying to put a container on everything that you talk about.
Yeah, I'm sitting there in my cubicle, and I'm clock watching, just ready for the day to be over, and I see this little calendar next to my desk. And I see all the holidays we have, the company holidays, paid time off days, stuff like that. I was making take home after taxes and all that stuff, like $50,000 a year. At best case scenario, in 30 years when I retire, 40 years, I get a 3% raise every year. So add all that money up, it's roughly like $4 million. And the work year is probably like 70% of the year when you look at time versus when you're there and when you're at home or when you're thinking about doing it, the commute, stuff like that. Yeah. And so over half of each year, I walk in and I'm miserable every single day. And when I'm away from it, I have like one day where I have my peace and I'm not thinking about work, because Sunday, all I'm thinking about is going in the next day. And so I laid it out over the next 40 years, and it's like, well, if that's the way that I live, then over half of my life, I'm unhappy and I'm getting paid $4 million over the next 40 years to do that. Is that worth it? No, not at all. There's no amount of money that you could steal half of my life's happiness away for.
Yeah.
And then I look down the hallway at my boss who's been there for 20 years, and I didn't want to be down the hallway in 20 years.
Yeah.
I want to be on top of our skyscraper with a big XV on it and hundreds of people around us that we've impacted. And like, that was my big wake up call of like, okay, something's got to change here.
Yeah.
And like, maybe it's not just like shooting content for the rest of my life, but this is a stepping stone into something that I actually love to do. And I think it would grow from here. So let's double down on it.
Yeah.
So from then on, like every single day when I got back from work, I was on my computer honing into my craft, studying YouTube, talking to Weston, you know, trying to grab as many shoots as I could just to get the experience, until an opportunity came and eventually allowed me to like quit my job and pursue my dreams. And that was the best. I never looked back. That was the best decision I ever made. And, you know, looking back now, I was like, man, that was pretty risky.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I'm very like a calculated risk taker, but you know, I never thought twice about that moment because I knew that anything was going to be better than that. And I always say I'd rather be a bum on the street doing what I love every single day than be the richest man in the world and be miserable every time I walk into the office. And I live by that still. Yeah. So if it doesn't make us happy, you know, or give us fulfillment, we don't do it. And there's a lot of things that come with, you know, entrepreneurship and growing a business and training people and honing in on a team that's not fun. You know, you wear all the hats when it comes to finances, scheduling, proposals, the actual like product, you know, fulfillment side of things. Like there's so many different things. I can't even name them all. 90% of it isn't very fun. Yeah. But that little bit of fulfillment that you get outweighs all the shit that you don't like to do. And if you just keep in mind that, like, you know, I live by a Hormozy quote because I love Alex.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a walking quote machine.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship isn't a game of best man wins. It's last man standing. And you just got to keep going. You just got to keep doing the boring shit. You got to keep putting in the hard work, and you got to just stay focused on the mission. And you know, some pretty cool things will happen after that.
I think my favorite word, you just kept saying impact. And I love that, is that it sounded like you wanted to have an impact, right? Yeah. Maybe the football for you was a little bit more enjoyable than the engineering or whatnot because you had an impact. You affected people's emotions and stuff like on the football field. But sounds like the reason why you stuck with it with the camera and that you kept developing your skills is because the impact that you had on your friends and the people that keep coming into your guys' space. Yeah, I mean,
I think that's why we do what we do, and that's where we get the most fulfillment. You know, and we can talk about the war room, but the first few sessions that we did just as like a test, we both looked at each other and like, how you feel? It's like, that was awesome. Can we do that every single day?
Well, yeah, tell us, what is this war room?
I'll let you go.
The war room is to identify the book. If I give you a pen to write my story, would you agree with that?
No, because I don't know you that well.
Right? You should write your own book.
Right.
But most people are getting told what to do and how to do it, so someone else is writing their book and telling their story. So what we do is say, scratch that book, we're going to write a whole new one. And what we do is we get up here on these black dry erase boards and we pull all this information out of you, right? Which is your identity, your gift, your mission, your happiness, your legacy. I can go on and on and on about it. Yeah. But what it does is have a whole structured system for you to evaluate yourself. Not me telling you what to do. It's you going, what do I really want to do in my life? Right? And what is my fear? Is my fear judgment? Is my fear of being forgotten? Why do I drive so hard? And why am I also not happy? And so what we do is we ask those questions that really pull them out. We make you, I call it the 5-inch to 32-inch. It's like up here is, you know, you're just playing pinball all day with idea. Right. 32 inches to the dry erase board or to paper. When you put it on paper, you're more likely to do it and understand it. And so when you have people that actually are listening to you and responding to you, we can pull that information out. And so the war room is basically how to identify the road to what you want to do. And we've seen the coolest aha moments of people. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had an experience like this, but imagine somebody that's sitting across from you that's $50 million worth. And they're over there like asking for our advice and our opinions, and like they're having their own aha moments. Yeah. And we're like, Chris is 28, I'm 31. I'm like, this is actually weird.
They're like leaning in, eyes wide open, like, you know, like waiting for the next thing that we say. Yeah. It's incredible.
It's mind blowing, and it's dopamine. It's purpose. It's fulfillment. We're able to help someone access their dream because they forgot about it a long time ago.
We've had people cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Afterwards. I mean, that's how deep it gets.
Yeah, we there's like 30 questions that I ask before we do one version of the war room, and it's like it's tough. Yeah. It's those mere questions that you try to just I don't even want to go down.
Tell the people like, hey, this is going to be hard. Like this is not. It's a war room. Like this is when you're doing self work. It's not easy.
It's the hardest thing.
Well,
it's hard.
And the other thing is I'm very strict on this is gray. Write it again. Don't give me a bullshit answer. It's black or white.
Push 'em.
You know why you have shame or guilt. Put it on the board.
Mm-hmm.
This is a free zone. Let it out. Appreciate it. This is your pain is your purpose. And so seeing the war room really develop into people and seeing them walk out of the door with their head high and confident and actually have a plan to find their happiness again is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. No, that sounds phenomenal.
And then we have the whole, it's business that turns to personal, that turns to business, that turns to fulfillment. So it's weird. We have to kind of, there's not a specific system on each person because everyone's different.
Sure.
Right. It goes back to the mindsets and the mind types, but
yeah.
You really have to lean into, I guess, what people are willing to explain to you and figure out how to read them faster than they read themselves. That sounds nuts and that sounds very twisted and intertwined, but like you have to absorb their personality type and help them understand theirs.
Sure.
So
I think that with you guys, I mean, I just watching you two during this podcast has been really fun. So what I do all day is I read people's body language and I sell them, right? So when I ask him a question and you answer for him, or I'll ask Wes a question and then you deflect the question to have him answer for you, it's wild. Like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but that is so uncommon. And it is probably the best teamwork duo I've ever seen. And this is just a podcast episode. Like, this is insane. Like, I legit asked you a question. You're like, you answer. I'm like, wait, what? Okay, yeah, you tell me about your friend over here.
Well, I mean, that's the way we work, right? And first of all, I appreciate your words.
Yeah, thank you.
We don't always see that because, that's just the relationship we have. And before business, we have 9 years of friendship. And really, it's family. You know, my mom views him as a third son. His dad views me as a son. Like, that's how close we are. And so that's where the trust factor comes in. But we realize each other's strengths. And they're not all the same. Like, we do have a lot of the same strengths together when it comes to, like, creativity and getting the job done. And, like, we're very aligned as far as the way we think and the way we move. But we have different strengths, and we lean into them. It's like, why try and take over something when I have a partner that can really excel in that and he can run with it while I focus on what I'm really great at and I run with that. And so we really have that dynamic even in our conversations, is like, if I don't always have my thoughts together about everything and I know he can speak it clearly, then like, hey, this is something that I know you can really talk well about, and then vice versa.
Did it take a bit of trial and error I mean, the biggest problem that partnerships usually have is the idea of kind of relinquishing authority or on one topic, for example. Yeah. So, I mean, did it take maybe you can think back in your relationship, but it take a little bit of trial and error to figure out like, hey, I'm going to hold my tongue while he's talking because this is his strong suit? Or is that something that you guys just have naturally built?
We've both developed that in different spaces. And then also, like, I don't know if you know, I started 8 years ago, and then Chris came in 4 years ago. And the reason we are where we are is because truly Chris. Like, I can truly say, like, without Chris, this doesn't scale the way it's scaled. And so, like, when we did this together, we had rules. We don't cuss at each other. We know where we started. And, I know how loyal Chris is, and I know how hard he's worked. And the other thing is, like, I think people don't really, like, when I deflect and I ask Chris, a lot of it too is I really don't know exactly how he feels sometimes. So I'd rather him explain how he feels about the situation than me saying it about myself. And I think in a partnership, if we put our egos at the door, because to get to the other island, we both have to row. Whether it's you're 10 and I'm 90 and I'm 90 and you're 10, in a partnership, it doesn't matter. And so I have to boost him up and he's got to boost me up. And there's no ego-driven mindset here. It's like, Chris is not better than me. I'm not better than Chris. That's why we're successful. Yeah. Because you go to other partnerships and you see one person that's Mr. Alpha in this thing. That's great. I appreciate that. But I think there's a place where you have to work together and you have to give credit where credit is due for people to really push what you're trying to push.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a we versus me. And we're really big on that. It's like, it's never I've done this or I've done that or I've built this and I did this project. It's a we thing, always.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue we see in other partnerships. And, you know, we've
Companies.
done a few war rooms with it. It's like you just listen to them and see how many times they say I.
Or me.
Or me.
Just
Yeah.
mine.
And you can tell a lot about like the company culture when you hear the people at the highest level speaking that way.
Yeah.
And it's like you just see all the issues they're gonna have down the line when they scale, of like people aren't gonna be bought into it because they're not feeling valued when you stand up there and you say, I've built this, when you have 30 employees behind you.
30, yeah. How hard was it? I mean, he'd been doing it for 4 years when you came in. So how hard was it for you to feel like, you know, one, that you're going to be contributing in that way, but two, that you had that.
That's funny you bring that up. Okay, so Weston, incredible creative, right? ADHD brain. When you look at his organization now versus back then, it's much different. He's grown a lot. I'm very proud of you for that, by the way. But the best way to describe it is when I first started working with him, we'd show up to a job site and he'd have this one Pelican, and everything
one like
Pelican luggage suitcase.
Okay, I'm like, what the heck is a Pelican?
Equipment storage.
Gotcha.
He'd have this one bin, and everything he needed for the job was just thrown inside of it. I mean, cords tangled up, cards, batteries, chargers, like lenses, like all kinds of stuff.
And he's just pumped that he remembered everything.
Yeah, and there was always one, like a battery is missing or an aux cord or like something wasn't charged or there's no cards in the camera or something like that. And so that was the first problem. I was like, okay, let's solve this. Right. And then there was just like, he's incredible at getting the job in and getting it done and being extreme creative. I saw a lot of pinpoints in his business that I could immediately add value to. And that's where I started. Because I knew that like the opportunity would be here because he was slammed and busy and like honestly overstrung with work and everything in between because he was doing everything on his own. Yeah. I saw that on the back end side of things, that's where I could step in first and help while I hone in a craft. And then also with my last job, I was, you know, financially pretty stable. So I was able to invest in all of the same gear that he had. So that was another big benefit, is like we had two of everything then. So when we showed up to a job site, it's like we could have 2 cameras for interviews. We had a backup photo camera. We had 2 drones. And so like I had the equipment, and then I saw a lot of like the issues that could be solved to make things a little bit smoother, you know, like a proposal for every project.
Yeah.
Creating the books, which I quite literally did through Excel, right? Because as an engineer, I was deep into Excel. He's like, every year he'd be like, I don't know where my money goes. And it's like, let's track it next year, you know? And so it's just little things like that over time that, you know, I feel like was my initial value. And then later on, like as I developed my craft and was on more jobs with him and learned a lot from him, because he is a big mentor in my life on communication specifically. Like I was very quiet, did not speak.
Yeah,
like,
who you're seeing today is not who Chris was.
No. I've had tremendous growth in the last 3-4 years. And I can imagine that. In that realm, you know, a podcast would frighten me.
I'd even say since January.
Even this year, really. Yeah. But anyways, what I'm saying is like, I forget what I'm saying, honestly.
No, you're good. Well, there's a couple things I want to hit on that. One, it's funny. I was like looking at you guys' old stuff, and both of you are like way stronger and beefier and stuff in the past year. You obviously have like been putting a lot of physical, but from your podcast, I think it was like 8 months ago, your first podcast till now.
About a year. Yeah.
About a year. Yeah. It's you guys sound a lot different too, which I think is really cool.
I'd say to spin off that, the reason we have really communicated into something that I think you're doing as well is like you're getting your reps in, and then also we're trying to attract the right people, which is why we're here in the first place. If we don't speak it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to align the people, and you have to do it through words and vocally, and that's what social media is a huge blessing for.
Right.
Without social media, we wouldn't even be here. Right? If you weren't voicing how you live your life and how you take care of your family and how you do solar and you're building business and entrepreneurship, we had no idea who you were.
Right.
And who you are.
Yeah.
So like a lot of respect for you and the space that you get to do things and how you do things aligns with exactly how we do things. So I think that's pretty cool. Especially seeing Chris now verbally really communicate. It's funny because we'll be in a meeting with a big client. We have massive meetings with these people, and it's like, do we shut up and just listen, or do we actually put out an input?
Yeah.
And so I love when Chris jumps out his input, and you can hear the tone of voice. I think that's when you really see someone's confident in speaking, is they, you can feel their nervousness.
Yeah.
And Chris doesn't have it anymore.
I love that.
So that's cool. And then also I love the moments where I'll be talking to someone like, Chris, explain this. And I'm like, I'm studying Chris the way he explains it. So we can obviously either great job or we need to go over it. Same thing with me is like, Chris has heard me say things to where he's adapted it and put it in his own mind and his own words. And I'm like, something the other day that you said, and I was like, dude, you fucking crushed that.
It's probably on the phone or something.
And I was like, this is just, I'm so happy because like Chris has never been that person to over explain and have the uppity energy and like, but he's passionate about what he's doing now.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is like the passion behind it is usually things that I speak on, because if I don't believe in it, I won't speak about it, and I need to understand it fully. So I'll sit back and I'll observe and I'll take it in and I'll sit with my thoughts. And then as soon as I have something put together inside my brain that I feel like is calculated and impactful, then I'll share it. I don't speak otherwise.
Right.
I hate small talk. I hate micro conversations. I know that's a part of business and networking, but at the same time, I like deeper connection, because that's where like I have like true conversations where I can actually add value and like build a relationship that's going to be worthwhile versus like small talk all across the board.
Something my coach always says is once you have learned how to have an open, vulnerable conversation with someone and you can get to a deep level pretty quickly, you won't ever want to have small talk ever again.
Yep.
Now, I'm a salesman, so I don't have that benefit, but
part of it.
It's part of my job, and it is a part of the job that I used to not care about that has now become pretty tedious and hard. I'm like small talking with them. I'm like, I kind of want to ask them about like that, picture over there and like why, anyways, it just, my brain starts working like, I kind of want to get deep with this guy right now, but I'm like, maybe I should make sure I close this deal first and then I'll jump into the deepness behind it.
I think people are looking for that though.
Yeah, they are.
I think people are tired of just the sales process. It's just not genuine anymore. It's a sales. I mean, you can smell a sales guy immediately, right? Mm-hmm. And so like what separates when we communicate, we're selling and we're not even selling.
Sure.
Right? We're just communicating life. Like we ask these massive people questions like, who is this person? Mm-hmm. That's how we get in rooms. Yeah. Is we ask those, what's his picture or whatever, right? We're asking these real thought out deeper questions where it's like, I don't know who these people are. And we go back, quote, to be more interesting, you have to be more interested. Mm-hmm. And we just drop those bombs and let them sit. Yeah. And they're like, who are these young guys? Yeah. That's really been the secret sauce to what we do.
Well, yeah, because we started in purely media and just content creation and delivering like the best product we possibly can. Mm-hmm. But like Weston said, what's identified us as so much more over the last years has really just been the question asking, right? Because we're close with a lot of our clients in ways that I don't know anyone else that's as close with their clients as we are in some aspects. Like we'll sit down.
They want to be around us. They want to brag for us. They want to provide for us. They want us to win. It's not a hey, come do a project anymore, but we've poured into them just as, like you said, the relationship, the bridge continues to extend as long as you work on it. Yeah. And so like, that's what I would recommend to anybody and everybody is we used to live on 100 pennies versus now we have 4 quarters. Like that's the true value is like, we want to be with those people on top of the mountain versus, just random places. So that's something, that we're super proud of is just getting those connections and that kind of thing. I mean, now that you've gotten to speak to us, are we even a video production company to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I was,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, the funny thing is you guys have done an amazing job because when I first saw, I can't remember, it was your account, I don't know, you guys have 20 of them, but when I first saw whichever account, it didn't come across as a media company. I was like, oh, that's their brand. And I don't know exactly what they're doing yet, but they're doing something more than just like being a creatives, right?
That's a little bit of our issue, right? And I just went to my 10-year high school reunion, and
I asked you about that.
A lot of people were like, I just see you guys doing a lot, and you're doing it like constantly. It's like, I don't know exactly what you're doing, but you're crushing it, right? Yeah. Which is awesome, right? But people need to be equipped with like, what are we? What do we do? Yeah. So that they can spread the word. So that we have that impact, that's exponential. And so that's something we're working on. And like, obviously our focuses have been on like getting this space right.
Well, I mean, you're building something really big. It's like you're a planet and you just have this massive gravitational pull and you're pulling guys like me and anybody who kind of sees it in. Yeah. And then you're able to kind of delegate them to the different parts of what they need. And so I honestly don't see something necessarily negative about it as long as And again, and I did want to ask this, so we're going to go back just a little bit more about the partnership between the two of you. Because when you have something as strong as what you two have, again, people want that. Mm-hmm. Relationships are lacking right now. Friendships are lacking right now. And so for someone to see what you two have alone is going to pull people in, period. And in case you're ever wondering, like, oh man, is this good? Is this good? If you guys just keep putting out stuff with you two together, you'll be fine. I promise. Okay.
Yeah. That's the step, is like, we haven't really put out a bunch of stuff. That's the next phase of like, I think we have like 6 podcasts done, but like nobody really knows besides handshakes of really who we are and what we do.
Well, who cares about one individual anymore? I think people are kind of getting sick of like Wes Watson, or like he's one individual that has like this whatever.
He's a terrible human, by the way.
Terrible, yeah. But people are getting sick of like one individuals that are, you know, saying this and doing that. There's power in numbers, and I think that and I know that you guys have like a couple other guys that are part of the company that you also are pretty close with, but with the two of you, it's almost like you're validating what each other is saying and doing, to the point where it's like, how can anyone not believe what you're doing and your intentions, right? And so I wanted to ask one more question. Wes, you had it for 4 years. You kind of been doing it. Did you know what he was going to bring to the company when you brought him on, or what was your idea between inviting him into your thing? Because I mean, 4 years is quite a long time to be working on something.
Right. I think just at that point, backstory just very quickly, I lived with Chris for specific amount of time, to where like family was bonded, like we were welded together at that point. And then I think Chris can vouch for this, but like I'm just a born giver. And the reason I give is because I've been on both sides of the fence. I used to work my ass off doing construction, learned how to learn how to work, grinded. And then I also saw the freedom of doing something that I truly love doing every single morning. You know, I'm not hitting the snooze button anymore because I actually accept my dream every morning. My why is stronger than anything now compared to what it was. So like, if I knew Chris at a very deep level, and I knew truly, even though he might not have admitted at the time, that he was happy, or he had, you know, this purpose and this fire that he knew was in his stomach, he just didn't know how to get out. I saw that because I saw myself in him. So what do? I want to give what I have, because I know how awesome and how cool of a feeling this is to think of something, create it, and then watch dopamine go off in somebody else's mind. So I'm always going to be the giver in the space of like, you have no idea how cool and how fun and how amazing life can be if you take the chance. And I had one person take the chance on me and believe in me. And if I can do that to one more person, then he can do it to one more person, then it continues to go. So, you know, 4 years, I knew Chris's mind. I knew his work ethic. I knew how he developed, the things he did. That was never even a thought in my mind. What a thought in my mind was, can I be that person that Ewan was for me, for Chris? If he's going to put the effort and time in, I'll give him all of my time. And that's what I did. And Chris took that time and he developed things. And there was a time where I was like, Chris, here's your chance. I don't know how to edit this. You don't know how to edit this. It's time to gamble.
Yeah.
And Chris stepped up. And that was the next phase of our business, was like, okay, we're going now. Like, this is clicking. You can do things that I could never do. And we were working dynamic with each other. And that was really the next phase of scalability at that point.
Well, what I love you just said there, and it's a phrase that I say, I've said this for years. Whenever I have a guy that I'm working with, I say, I will always invest into you what you're willing to invest into yourself.
Right.
Period. Like, if I see someone's not putting in the work outside of the work, the hours, then I'm not going to invest into them. Right. And so when they come to me and it's obvious that they've done the work, they've done things, I'm going to reciprocate that fully. And so I think that's cool that obviously you two have, one thing I'm going to say as well is, I can tell right now there's no place where you start and you begin, or you end and you begin, because it's just a blend. And so the cool thing I think with business and partnerships like yours is that, yeah, you have your different strengths, but you're one unit. It's very obvious, and you are working more efficiently. You obviously are both growing so much faster because you're working as one. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think the way we work is like, I add as much value and bring as much to the table as I possibly can to him. and he does the same for me. That's where we started, and that's what we continue to do every single day. And I think as long as you have that in a partnership or a friendship or a relationship, then it's going to be pretty successful.
Yeah.
And it'll be healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'd say too, I'm a pusher.
Yeah.
I love to push. Like and I think it's because what irritates me more than anything is, yes, I have a very high expectation of Chris, but why wouldn't I? Right. And I think it comes back to how to unlock people's potential. And if they don't see it in themselves, it bothers the shit out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But with Chris,
yeah,
the ceiling just keeps going up. And I know that, which is why I always want to invest in Chris. Always have, because I knew he was willing to take that risk and take that chance and jump and try to fly and do whatever he needed to do to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
that's because he keeps putting the work on himself as well.
Exactly.
When we look back every year at the growth we've had from where we started, where we're at, in December, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It feels like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
and sometimes financially it doesn't, but there's
No.
so many systems in place where it's like, okay, we're on the track. We know we're knocking down doors to build our own door or whatever is going to happen. We just know that we're developing better as humans. We're attracting the people we need to attract. Something's going to click.
100%. Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, this year, and I've said this in a couple of my episodes, so my guys know this, but at the beginning of the year, when I set goals, it was the first time I set goals and I put financial last. I did family first goals, and then I did what I called at the time fulfillment, because I lacked that and I wanted it. And then I did a couple other things, and then financial goals was at the very end. Whereas every single year before that, I had always done financial goals first, and then how am I going to do it? So when I finally rearranged my priorities for this year, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to do things based on how I feel like I'm going to grow and how I could be, I guess, wealthy instead of how much money is in my bank account.
Right.
And yeah, technically this year I made less, net versus gross. It kind of depends. I haven't done the math yet, but I'm like, gross last year was bigger, but net this year might be bigger. Regardless, I'm looking at this year. I'm like, the growth that I've had is worth 10 times the income that I lost.
It's priceless.
Right. Priceless.
Well, and then like, how do you measure experience? Like, we might not make a crazy amount of money, but we live the coolest life experiences that you could ever imagine.
Yep.
Like, we got to go to Saudi Arabia together and be ringside with Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. It's like, that's priceless.
It is.
So like, we get to do some really cool things and we get to do them together, which is just as cool. So it's looking at financials, and I look at it at a different space, is like, what actually is rich, what actually is wealth. And I think that's just a thing for each person to kind of identify. Because you can be really rich. It just depends on what you identify it as.
Yeah.
So
like money's a tool, and we know we need that tool to build what we want to
tool of
build.
freedom.
But I love that you said that, because that's where a lot of people have it screwed up, is like they put their financials first as far as their goals, and you may hit those goals, but you'll be lacking on the fulfillment and happiness side of things.
Yeah.
If you put it last and focus on all of those things that you were talking about first, that results in financial gain and financial freedom, and you have the fulfillment attached to it, which is like the dream scenario, right? Even if you don't realize it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do here, is like, we may not hit the mark on what we want to make and increase every single year, but we've got the studio now.
Yeah.
We've got a team behind us. We've got systems in place. We just started a community. We have over 80 people online that are tapped in and just want to get better. We have 35 people showing up every Saturday morning to get in a workout and, circle around and talk about their life and grow together. And they don't have to be here. They choose to be here. And all we have is a driveway and a rack. No, there's nothing special. There's no crazy gym out there. It's just pretty cool to see. And it's pretty cool to look back and think about where we started versus where we are now. And, a lot of it we had thought about, and, we had the vision of it, but the details outside of it were just something that was created over time and just a happy accident in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious, and we kind of wrap up with this as well, but what I'm curious, I want to know your guys' opinions about goals versus vision, because it's something I've talked with quite a few people on my podcast about, where I personally have kind of a different view on goals. I think that, yes, it's good to you set goals held loosely. So really big, strong goals held loosely is my phrase I like to call it. So I'll set a 3-year and a 5-year goal, but I'm not hanging on to that goal because I know that who I become along the way is going to ultimately probably change my trajectory for that goal. And frankly, usually raise my vision anyways. So I'm curious. And now that's why I think that vision is almost more important, where it's like, because I don't know if they go hand in hand, where it's like, hey, if you have a really good vision, yeah, that's really important and you want to hold on to that. But same thing, like as you're growing, you've got to be able to change your vision. So I'm curious what you guys is, since you've experienced so much growth in the past few years, what's your opinions on the goals versus visions?
I'll let you start that one, because I'd say the vision aspect of things didn't really come into play for me until like I finally stepped back and looked up and was like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Where do we want to go? That wasn't something that I focused on for years. It was more so like this step, that step, that step.
You're in the minutia,
yes,
in the details. Yeah.
Right. I was stuck in the details, and that's where I thrive, but that's also like my biggest Achilles heel. He's an incredible visionary. And so that's why I want him to talk a little bit about it too.
So I look at two roads. I look at goals as data driven, and I look at vision as an illusion. Right? It's an inception of something that's a thought up process of like, how do I get here? And then, I don't necessarily look at goals. I look at actions, where if I do my best every day, I'm more likely to get my goals and I'm more likely to create a vision. I think when you have a vision board, it's not necessarily a goal board, because I think goal is designed on like, okay, we're going to have 30, 60, 90 days to this goal. I don't think you would do 30, 60, 90 with a vision, because the vision constantly expands, because it's a dream, it's an idea, it's a concept. Yeah. This first started as a concrete pad, and it's developed into boom, boom, boom. It started into, never in my life did I have really a vision to build a fitness community. It just turned into the vision. And so I think when you get clarity of certain things, you have to be around dreamers. It's contagious. If you're not around people that inspire you, you're not around people that are going to push you in all those spaces, I have to be around people. I have to be on podcasts. I have to listen to things that inspire me to dream so that I can help other people pull out their dreams. Yeah. So yeah, I think goals is one lane of, okay, let's data track this. Let's find, certain hard point. And then I think a vision creates into a dream.
Yeah. And the dream and vision are very much aligned in my opinion, but the mission is a lot what we talk about too. And like your mission has to be stronger than your result. And it has to be something that's like kind of somewhat unattainable, or
so say it again so people can make sure they understand that.
I like that mission idea.
Yeah. So your mission has to be stronger than the result, right? Goals are very much result driven, right? Because it's action, you execute, you hit your goals. Yeah. A mission is limitless, right? That's his word, limitless. And so, people have dreams of, I want to feed millions of people one day, or I want to impact millions of lives. Well, how do you do that? Right. That's where the goals come into play. That's the vision, right? And that's the mission as well. It's like, and I'm getting kind of stuck in it because, vision, mission, action, goals, they somewhat align, but yeah, I think you can probably clear that one up.
Mission to me is effort. I think goal is result. Right. And then I think vision is a concept. So, I want to make $500 million. Okay. That's a goal, right? You have to reverse engineer it, make a goal, make this, that, and the other. But what is the vision of that actually once you do 500 million? So that's why I think the mission is more important, because once
you why.
Yeah.
Why do you want $500 million?
Everything else. Yeah.
Right. And that becomes the mission and the vision. So I think when you this is the problem in the study, and everybody can go study dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. Go study them. You'll understand your happiness. You'll understand your mindset, everything. And then you strategically plan those in your life to have a happier life. Yeah. But when you hit 500 million, your dopamine crashes because you accomplished it. What else do I have to do? So you have to create a mission that's stronger than your result. So do I want to impact 1 million lives, or do I want to impact as many lives as I can? To where it never actually ends, where the people that dream and chase and push, you can't give them a hard point. You have to give them something that's unreachable. And when you give somebody that dreams and is super driven something that's unreachable, they'll never stop. They'll continue to scale. They'll continue to grow. But as soon as they get that taste of I did it, then what do they have left? Yeah. That goes back to brain types though.
Yeah, well, I love that you said that. You got to know yourself in order to make a good dream and a good vision. and you got to know what drives you and everything like that. And so no, I appreciate that. That was like probably the best answer I've heard anyone give. So mission is.
What is your mission?
Yeah, the cool thing is that's also changed recently, and in the process of figuring that out. And so something like a war room would be really, really good, because when you become, I guess this is the one thing I can say, when you become a father, it's it changes your entire mindset and being, in my opinion, at least the way that I think I'm going to be a father, a good one, hopefully. And so, yeah, I think the idea is, I resonate really well with what you said about impact. I'm a person that likes to impact others. And I also know that I, like Wes, am I get a lot of dopamine rush. I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping others and seeing them succeed. Mm-hmm. And so figuring out exactly how to do that is going to be the task. But I'd say if I could formulate kind of a mission, and this is very, very vague, which would need to be funneled down into something more specific, but to simply put, help young men and women find their, ultimately just find what helps them, what drives them. Yeah, find what ultimately, I guess, gets them out of bed, right? Because for so long, I didn't have that. Mm-hmm. And so now that I have it, like we've talked about, that's what I want to give.
Do you know what yours is?
What gets me out of bed? Mm-hmm. Kind of talked about it a little bit before, but yeah, ultimately creating a life.
Give me 3 things.
Creating a life for my family, mm-hmm. that so my kids and wife can be also impactful, because that's something that I feel like as a husband I need to cultivate and create.
Okay.
That they can't do on their own. Third thing, repeat the question again.
So 3 things that is your why.
That's my why.
So you have your family and your kids.
Family, kids.
What else do you want to do in the world? Why do you wake up?
Create. I've always been a creative person.
Okay. So family, creation. Mm-hmm. I already know your third one, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I guess if I can just go back to impact.
You'd love to help people, bro.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to identify what the help is. Mm-hmm. It's gray. So like niching down on what that actually looks like, of like helping people find their why. Maybe that's it. Mm-hmm. But figuring out those triangles. So we evaluate our whole life on a triangle. Mm-hmm. Right. So you and I connect, and then all of a sudden I know somebody that needs to get into solar. I connect you, and now we're all together.
Right.
Which is why we're here in the first place.
Yeah.
So what we try to do with people identifying certain things is you have to have the 3 things that you're truly passionate about. And when we put all 3 of those things together for us, exclusive life came in the middle. Right? So we have creative, we have people, which people connections, right?
Sure, yeah.
And then wealth, which to us, wealth is mental and physical. Right? And so like you have exclusive life. So building a brand around mental, physical entrepreneurship is what we want to do, because we're already doing it.
Yeah.
So when you have your triangle and you have your why, is developing a business around your why to where you're just doing what you're already doing.
Yeah.
What you love to do.
That's natural.
You don't get that burnout.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it flows naturally almost, I'd say.
Yeah.
At least I could see it in you guys.
Yeah. And you can feel the enthusiasm behind it when we're talking about some of these things, because we're so passionate about it. We do it for ourselves, and we want to help other people do that for them.
Yeah.
So like what we're building, and you've only seen phase 1 of this, but we're building a 25,000 square foot fantasy factory, cold plunge, hot tub, IV, mastermind areas, conference rooms, podcast area, production spaces, Airbnb units, kitchen,
tattoo shop.
So what we thought of was like, every time we travel, we're like, gosh dang it, how nice would it be to have a gym, a place where we can cook, we're comfortable, and we could work on business all in one place. So like what we're creating is the attraction to come here, where you can bring your whole entire company here. You can work on business. You have your gym. You have your recovery. You have your peace, right? You get to separate from the world. You get to get creative again. You get to dream again. It's in our backyard.
Yeah.
we're doing this not for necessarily like everybody else. We're also doing it for us because it's like, what would we want?
Right.
And so we're just doing something that's naturally something that we would enjoy, but we also know that the whole world needs a mental, physical entrepreneur space.
Yeah. Well, you're saying what would we want, but then you're going to attract the people that also want the same thing.
Those are the people we want to work with anyway.
Those are the people you want to be with anyways. Exactly.
Right? And then they're out there. I think it's a 1 to 5 odds, right?
Yeah.
If me and you have a great conversation in a day, I'd say 1 to 3 more likely, but you're going to probably go tell 3 people about the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Just naturally. And I'm going to do the same thing about you because I enjoyed our conversation. So like developing a space, developing a compound where people are like, yo, y'all have to go. Mm-hmm. Understand the people and the culture, and then also you get to work out, you get to eat, you get to do all the things and feel again.
Yeah, is
what we want to do.
I love that. So. And it doesn't come without a lot of work, right? I mean, you got to be willing to put yourself in a place where you're willing to work on yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, is it sometimes crazy to be put on the spot and ask what your why is? Sure. But at the same time, am I ready to embrace that and know that, this is going to be in a place where I can grow? Yeah, that's the idea, right? Knowing that, by doing a podcast or by meeting other people, it's going to take work. That's the idea. Right. And I think you guys are just kind of help facilitate the work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, people can come here to do the work, or it's like, people that we work with and they've done some inner reflection and figure out their why is like, they're going to go to the masses and just be obsessed with telling other people about it.
Yeah.
And it's just a domino effect from there. Like whether or not our name's attached to it, we don't care. It's just like I said, in 100, 200 years, we're going to be forgotten. Like, unfortunately, that's the case. But our impact can live on.
Sure.
As long as we help people identify gifts so that they can help other people identify gifts.
Right.
I would say, too, this goes back to day one. I picked up a camera because I loved it. I didn't want to get paid. I didn't care about everything. It's something I was passionate about. Whether we do this for business or not, me and Chris would still build this compound for our personal use.
Yeah.
Would we not?
100%. I mean, that's why we're building it initially, and then we've seen the impact. It's like, we have to do this, not just for ourselves, for everyone else.
That's where it came from. Yeah. It's like, we're going to do this regardless, but we might as well bring other people along the process to help them out develop their dream and reality. So that's really the truth, man. It's just being able to provide a space, bro.
That's so awesome. So you have the fantasy fact. Do you have a name for it yet?
XV Compound.
XV Compound.
XV Compound. So we'll have XV1. We're going to have XV1 on this studio. And then we'll have XV2, which is going to be phase 2, which is going to be the garage/gym, outdoor gym. And then we're going to have just an exclusive podcast room ourselves where we can attach it to here. So we live here. Mm-hmm. So we can go right out the sky deck into the phase 2, and then phase 3 we go straight to phase 3 from our sky deck as well. So
we have this crazy concept for this massive building that we're putting over there.
Yeah,
we're going to take the shell of a helicopter,
which this is real. This isn't just some imaginary.
This is going to happen. Okay. It started with an idea, and it's like, wait, this could happen.
Yeah,
put together. Take the shell of a helicopter, put it in the middle of the giant facility, and those big industrial fans.
Yeah,
they're called big ass fans.
Big ass fans.
Yeah.
That's going to be the helicopter propellers, right? And it's going to be the hub to where like you can only get there from the SkyTrack or like an elevator in the middle.
So there's a Willy Wonka elevator. It's this clear thing that you go up. I also thought of this the other day, which I thought was really cool. When we build, because we're going to build an editing room in there, right?
Okay.
So I thought this the other day, and I'm like, what would be even cooler, Chris, is if we have Employee of the Month and they get to have the war station.
That's like their desk for the month or something. The
war station.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick. To where like you can see everything that's going on.
It's a gratitude thing. Like I worked my ass off. I got to be in the helicopter this month. Like
that'd be sick. There you go. That way no one's like above everybody.
The war station.
Yeah. It's not like
So I we had this idea, dude, and it was like I just got to keep telling people this.
Yeah.
And so told a buddy his dad has helicopters, and I get a phone call like 3 months later. He's like, dude. He's like, that crazy idea with helicopter? He's like, I found you a helicopter. He's like, my dad's friend, he sells them back to gun ranges, all capped out, and he sells them for $2,500 to $3,000. And I'm like, buy me one today.
Like, what about tanks? You guys got any tanks out there?
So there's no telling what we come up with in there. And then so that's phase 3. Phase 4 is there's an exclusive section. Mm-hmm. So this one's the crazy creative one. So we have like multiple products inside of our proposal, which is your base, your silver, your exclusive package, which is like the, high end.
Yeah.
So this is a really big dream in here, but we want to have an XV helipad where you buy the exclusive package. We have a team that drops you down in the, like on the helipad.
Yeah.
And then no one can access this unless you purchase the exclusive package. And what you do is you go in the shipping container, and we're going to do an escape room. And you have to actually figure out all these things inside the escape room in order to actually get into the specific part of the studio. So you go through and you got to figure it out, and then all of a sudden this piece drops, and you're going to walk down, and you're going to walk up into the studio like Batman.
Nice. That's awesome. Your analytical brain would love that. Just
got it
mixing
mapped
up a escape room every so often.
By the way, I don't know if you've ever done an escape room.
Yeah, I have.
So fun.
Yeah. For some people, they're fun. If you had that right kind of mindset for it, they're a lot of fun. I loved it personally, but I went with someone who, man, I did it right when they first came out, and I took a girl on a date there, and gosh, she hated it so much.
Really?
Like her anxiety was like going crazy. I was like,
oh God.
Well, this is one and done for
hey,
sure.
You can't say the wrong thing to the right person, bro. It's just not supposed to happen.
Yeah. No, but if you can't handle an escape room, but I think that idea is phenomenal. I mean, you have obviously lots of space out here too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, literally the idea of an XV, Fantasy Factory, the exclusive.
We're gonna build like.
I don't know if you've ever been to Alpha Land, and like we go up to First Form a lot, and it's like we've basically innovated multiple spaces and tied it to mental health, which that's the one key thing that none of these facilities have. Is they all have physical health.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have an entrepreneur program in there, because like you go to First Form, it's not designed on entrepreneurship. It's just designed on culture and team. Right. But in order to scale companies and scale money and financially, like if we have a facility, when we will have the facility, the goal is to intertwine the triangles.
Right.
So if we're in there and it's entrepreneur driven only, all these entrepreneurs come in. Now we're doing business deals together. We're doing their production if we're still in that space. We're renting out the space. And then also now we're doing business deals together.
Yeah.
Where you're doing private equity, you're doing solar, I need to connect you to this roofer. Boom. Now all of a sudden we're monetizing our cash flow with not even doing anything, but like making the connections. So if you need a roofer and all of a sudden we do a deal and we get a kickback of all these people that intertwine in our gym or our facility.
Yeah.
Well, now we're making a lot of money and being business owners in multiple businesses versus just one business.
And they're all verified and trusted because they're inside of our network, right? And so that's the thing, is like they get that stamp of approval if they're attached to our business, and people have that trust. You don't have to guess, because how many times have you been burned?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the referral system's amazing. So it's like, okay, like we have a friend of ours, Greg, amazing human. He's been obviously the one that's kind of opened this up for us and kind of thinking outside the box of how to make more money just through our connections.
Right.
And so it's, okay, well, if this person has an apartment complex and we connect them to a builder.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden we just got a 10% referral fee on a $15 million project. Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds like a way easier way to make money than video production.
and what I dream about really is like, imagine a kid coming to like XV University, right? 20 years old, whatever age he is. In 20 years, he becomes a Hormozy, a Musk, right? And he started with us.
Right.
How cool would that be?
Yeah.
Or will it be? Right?
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
We have a tier program. So what we want to do with the curriculum, the college, right?
Yeah.
Tier 1, we help you identify your dream. Tier 2, since we know your dream, we actually refer you to a mentor inside our community.
Yeah.
Right, our circle, because we have everybody that you can think of in different spaces.
Yeah.
Solar, we got roofing, we got everything possible. So then what we do is you go study the mentor, right? Tier 3, you work for the mentor. Tier 4, the mentor helps you actually start your business, and they have an ownership in it.
Dang.
So now it's a full system, right? And then we're also intertwined in that as well, where now we have an ownership in companies because we helped supply the companies.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, one of the hardest things in that process there, of course, the beginning steps of finding your dream and stuff is difficult, but it's finding the right mentor.
Yeah.
That could be really difficult. So
vetting
them and...
We've understood in the mentor space, a lot of the people in that space want to actually help their younger self. So if someone's already here to want to grow...
Yeah.
Like 40, 50, 60-year-olds, they've already made their money.
Yeah.
They get more excited from seeing other people learn and process and develop. They want to grow the younger generation. Yeah. That's their next fulfillment. And so it's weird how it intertwines, but it's like, that's kind of the vision, man. I mean,
yeah. No, I love that.
It helps all spaces.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And where you guys can obviously benefit is all of these business people and entrepreneurs, what they usually lack is the creative side of things and the ability to be able to put it all together in some kind of a platform.
We want everybody to pull up. I mean, I don't know what you thought when you pulled up. You're like, oh, this looks like a cool facility, but like, imagine all this is done. We're going to do a pickleball basketball court, and we had this idea the other day is we're going to do LED lights as the three-point line, free throw line.
Oh, cool.
And then you flip a switch and all of a sudden it's pickleball.
Like these LED track lights. Imagine that on a court.
Oh, and then you can switch to sport.
Some black and white, red XV sport court, right? Yeah. But when you pull up, it's like, we want to be the Apple of brand builders. These big corporations come in, you know, we have the consulting, we have the creative marketing strategies, we have concepts, and then also their team works together. So they stay at the facility because we're right in the hub of California and Florida and New York.
Yeah.
Let's go to exclusive compound to grow our business, to learn our business and learn about each other.
Yeah.
Perfect hub.
It's an experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right.
And people will do a write-off for $50,000 for their whole team to come down here and develop.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's you know, spend pennies to make dollars, right? I mean, when you have something like that, that's so all purposeful and that can help guys kind of break down and level up so kind of quickly too. That's worth any amount of dollars. So, well, I think I can keep asking you guys, so what else do you have in plan? But I don't think you'd run out of answers. So
no, we can keep going all day long.
Yeah. I'm like, so what's next? I feel like we just be here forever.
I got a question.
Yeah.
When are you going to be on our podcast?
Hopefully really soon. I've only done one podcast as the guest.
No, dude, it's our time to drop some bombs, dude. No, we got to ask the questions.
That'd be fun.
We're going to pull some shit out.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories that I've just never shared or been able to share just because, you know, it just doesn't come up in the conversation I have with the guest. Yeah. And so I love that.
Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. Let's do it. I'm in.
We got to finish the space a little bit more and then we'll make it crazy cool.
Yeah.
Let's get there.
Man, I mean, compared to some setups that you see with some podcasts, this is already like really cool.
We got to honestly, like for the podcast you're on with us, we should do it at night. Because when we have these lights in and stuff like that, you can create something that looks so different.
You can get like Chris Williamson and like to go all cinematic, and you see some of those that he's done.
That's what we love.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We also we're getting to the space too where like we love smoking cigars. So like we really want to get to the point where we can do a podcast smoking cigars. But we want to get a shipping container and cut it out and make like an actual cigar room.
Oh, okay.
And then convert it into a gym and a bunch of random things. But
yeah, we could go on for days about the concepts, but
the vision, remember? It's not a goal, it's a vision.
Yeah, but obviously your mission is just so big that
it's limitless.
Well, this mission that you guys have is so big, it's limitless that the vision can just ever expand and your goals can just ever expand.
Our why kind of remains constant, and I think we've really honed in on that, which is the mission. But like you said, the vision will adapt, and as well as like our goals each year, like that's ever changing, and we expect it to be that way. And I think if it was the same every single year, we'd hate it. I know he would. I would too over time. I can usually put up with that a little bit longer, but it would just drive us crazy. You know, I'm not trying to go back to the cubicle.
No,
you know.
And guys, me and Wes with our brains, dude, we can't.
He can't. He never could be in there. 5 seconds, he'd be tearing the walls down.
Semester of college, and I said, "Fuck this."
You can ask my wife. My wife just has kind of given up on trying to keep up with all the different things I'm doing. Literally last night, I was like, "So I guess I'm doing like this Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim thing." She's like, "Of course you are."
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When are you doing it?
2 weeks.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, step up or step down, son.
Come on, dude.
Well, I would, but that's like right before my marathon.
Hey, dude, there's your challenge.
Right before the marathon.
Yeah, I know that's intense.
I'll go do it so that I'll learn like the pathway and stuff, and then me and you will go do it.
I'm all about it, dude.
I saw a friend of mine doing it just like last week, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Is that what Spencer and
that's what Anna and Coy did?
Did Spencer and
I think I want to say yes, but I don't know for sure.
They went and they were going through the snow. It was like 48 hours. It's crazy.
It depends when you go.
It depends on when you go.
Because people think the Grand Canyon is like a desert. No, it gets cold in the North Rim.
3 people left because they were like frozen.
Oh yeah. Well, like normally, you can run it. Like me and you would run it.
Right.
And then I'm hiking with a group of guys. It was in our group we always do an oh shit goal. So my oh shit goal for this year was to do the half Ironman. One of the guys in our coaching group, his oh shit goal was to rim to rim to rim.
Okay.
And so we got a couple of us buddies that are going to go kind of support him. So we're going to be hiking it and supporting him.
Let me tap into that group, man.
It's like you guys are building the group. I tapped into a group, thankfully, that with a coach and a structure and everything like that, so that way I can learn how to do something like you guys are doing as well.
That's crazy.
Building it. So
well, Dan, bro, we just want to first off say thank you, bro. We enjoy your energy. We enjoy your kindness. It's a very rare thing these days, bro.
Wow.
Open arms. we're excited to see your passion unfold to whatever it is going to be, man. I think that goes back to you, is the word limitless is something you should steal from us.
Yeah.
And just keep driving, bro, and doing the things you do, and excited to see where the friendship goes.
Yep.
Excited to see where business goes. Anything we can do, man, it's just a phone call.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited that you guys could share with me kind of your vision and your mission. And if I could bet on anything right now, it would be you two. Like Ed Milet says, if you were a stock, I'd buy you with everything I got. Like literally, that's,
Well, thanks,
I'm
bro.
bought into you guys. So thanks for coming on.